So known miscreant Matt Lloyd is back again. Well, he's a top fan, so we don't know. Captain Marvel claimed to be a success. What do you think about reports of Disney buying out tickets? Not sure if it's true, but many people have reported sitting in an empty, sold-out theater. That's interesting. The last right angle I did was about Captain Marvel, and I started off by saying I predicted it was going to completely tank, and it looks like I was wrong. And the reason I was convinced it would tank is not just because of the not just because of all the feminist messaging and all of that. I just thought it would tank because it just looked boring. I didn't see anything in that character that interested me at all. I didn't see anything in the plot that interested me. I couldn't tell you what the plot is. I know it's like Superman, with a better figure. Somebody falls out of the sky with superpowers, and then something happens. That's all I know about Captain Marvel, and it's pretty much all I care about with Captain Marvel. I did see on YouTube a really, really good analysis of why social justice warrior comics are so terrible. And this guy did a comparison between a modern comic. I'm not a comic book guy, called Ms. Marvel. And the big point of Ms. Marvel was that Ms. Marvel is a superhero who is a Muslim. And she's a Muslim girl, and she sneaks out at a party and accidentally gets drunk, and that's against her religion. And next thing you know, she passes out and wakes up, and in the sky above her are all of the superheroes, and all of the superheroes basically say, well, guess what? Looks like you're the luck of the draw. We're going to give you all of these magical powers because you just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Okay. And he compared this with this is the first edition, first episode, first book. And he compared it with Daredevil, which tells the entire story. On the first page, you know what's going on. You see him in the costume at the end of the first page. And you hear about how he became blinded and how he always wanted to make his father happy and how he succeeded in this and that and so on. Then he gets injured by trying to save a guy, in a traffic accident. Now he's a blind superhero. You got all of this pretty much by the end of the first page. You certainly had it by the end of the first book. He points out that the Ms. Marvel thing, all you get is she's a Muslim. And did you notice that she's a Muslim? Also, you may not notice it, but she's a Muslim. And the really astute readers of Miss Marvel will discover that the hero is Muslim. And that's it. Daredevil works for his powers, earns them. He's constantly striving, exercising, working out. He earns his superpowers. And this social justice warrior, Mary Sue, just happened to pass out at the right place at the right time when all of the superheroes were somehow handing out powers, which I don't understand. One of the, it's when you say I don't understand it, it's like you can see the non sequitur in this. How can superheroes hand out powers to people? And of course, that kind of begs the question, well, how do superheroes have superpowers in the first place? But there's one simple rule, and that rule is if you're going to ask people to suspend their disbelief, if you're going to ask them to come for the ride, then you have to obey the rules that you have set up in your own universe. You have to obey your own rules. For Star Trek, that means, you don't get to just instantly go from place to place. It takes time, and any number of other things. It means you don't have an ultimate weapon that you can just use against everybody. So you're going to have a battle with the Romulans or the Klingons. So you're going to shoot phasers and photon torpedoes, and they're going to shoot disruptors and things like that. And that's your rules. Those are your rules of your universe. And you can't just come up with suddenly just come up with a violation of those rules. So I bring that up because there's nothing that I saw in the Captain Marvel trailer that I thought was interesting or even worth watching from a visual effects point of view. Certainly, she didn't seem to have any charisma. She just was just and not very unique looking either. Just like it's like you went down to the mall and found somebody, took him out of Forever 21 and put him into one of these suits and said, "Congratulations, you're a superhero." I didn't see anything in it. I didn't see any of the Nick Stark stuff or the the angst of Spider-Man or the guilt of the Hulk or nothing, just nothing. Just like she has all the powers in the world, and she's a woman, so she doesn't have to earn them because she's a woman, and presumably. And again, I'm not a fan of this stuff. I didn't see the Avengers, the last Avengers movie, and I'm not likely to see the final one. But I've heard she's going to basically defeat the arch villain. Was it Thanos or Thanatos or whatever? So she's basically going to parachute in at the end of the story with magical powers that she didn't work for and win everything because she's a girl. Any other questions? Now, in the comments section, Edward Smith said Shazam looks like it might be fun, and I have to say that Zach, the guy who plays Shazam, is one of the people I know best out here. Although I haven't seen him in years, but I've been over to his house many times, and he is a great guy. He really is. He's just a terrific guy. And when you first see the Shazam costume, you really look at it and you got to be kidding me. Seriously, you're going to try and make a movie about Shazam, and you see this big lightning bolt. And yet, when you watch Zach's expression, he makes it work. He makes it work. And he does that because he's got a very clean, very pure sort of innocence about him that makes it work. That whole thing, the whole thing turns on whether or not you believe that this guy finds this whole thing as ridiculous and as shocking as you do. So I think it's going to be terrific, and I think it's going to be as popular, maybe not quite as popular, but it's going to have the same appeal as Deadpool. It's going to be making fun of itself, but it's also going to work within its own set of rules. It will follow its own rules. It will, if it's going to be a lighthearted kind of thing, then you really can't have anything particularly tragic happen in the way that you could with Batman, let's say. You gotta, if you're gonna wink and nod at the audience and say, "Look, I got this gigantic lightning bolt on my chest this wide, and it glows in the dark," you can't really start to get into serious stories. You gotta kind of stay with the kind of campiness, or else you're in trouble. And you got a guy in a ridiculous suit. 4 movies from now, I predict he'll be wearing a completely black one-piece suit, slimmed down completely. Lightning bolt will be just raised, and he'll be, they'll take all of the silliness out of him, kind of the way they did with Robin. But anyway, that's about that. So anyway, just the idea that whether they bought tickets, I was suspicious about the numbers. And I know Hollywood can really fake the numbers, but again, I'm kind of stuck with this fundamental belief that, the simplest explanation is the most likely one. Most likely one is that I was wrong about it and it got seen by more people than I thought. If it turns out that they completely faked the numbers for political reasons, then that's kind of another comic gate. It's another, was it comic gate? What was it? Gamergate, sorry. That's another Gamergate, if it turns out that's the case. So I hope they did fake it. It'd be fun to know, but I'm going to assume that they didn't.